Hi everybody, and welcome to Josiah is Right. So for a moment, take yourself back in time to the mid-1990s. I would pore over magazines looking for any detail about the mysterious Star Wars holiday special. I cannot convey enough how much I wanted to see that special. I was so very wrong. Star Wars was a cultural phenomenon unlike anything that had ever preceded it. Today, every movie is the biggest thing ever, but at the time, this movie was the biggest thing ever. This was a time when there wasn't a whole lot of Star Wars out there, and you really couldn't watch Star Wars at home. This was before VHS brought these movies home for purchase, or, as in our household, by way of recording it off the television. There was this book, where Luke and Leia were clearly not meant to be brother and sister, but very little else. There was an often wacky Star Wars comic from Marvel. The early issues are wonderfully liberated. In 1977, there weren't even toys in time for Christmas. They actually sold an early bird kit, basically a piece of paper saying, "Be patient," to a child. Good luck with that at Christmas. By the way, they developed prototypes of toys based on the holiday special, which amounted to various colored Chewie figures, so not the worst thing in the world. In 1978, there were toys, but apparently kids and their parents need to be reminded to buy them. It was the age of variety shows. Today, the equivalent would be of a reality competition show. Imagine Chewbacca on Dancing with the Stars. Disney, please don't do that. Those variety show appearances often resulted in increased ticket sales. Everyone wanted to keep Star Wars out front. So when CBS approached Lucasfilm with the idea of doing a Star Wars kind of Christmas special variety show, what could possibly go wrong? At the time, George Lucas was busy moving his operations to Northern California. He was also developing Empire Strikes Back at the time, so he didn't have time for a really more hands-on approach to developing a story. Remember, this is a time when Star Wars wasn't so firmly defined in our pop culture. It was before many years had passed of playing with those toys. We really only had the toys for a few months at that point. We as fans had yet to become possessive, and I don't believe that George Lucas truly knew what he had as he developed Empire. It was still all being worked out. The story wasn't defined yet. Again, there was no way whatsoever he knew Luke and Leia were brother and sister at this point. Lucas was considering a very Disney-like approach of a movie a year. So essentially every other year you'd have a movie, with a standalone movie one year and a sort of saga film the next year. One of these film ideas was a film focusing on Wookiees. Lucas passed an outline onto the TV people and left. According to the show's writers, they met for a day discussing the plot. One of those writers even said that Lucas mentioned that Han was married to a Wookiee, but it was controversial to mention that fact. To me, the controversy isn't that he's married to a Wookiee, it's that that Wookiee would be implied to be anybody other than Chewbacca. It kind of fits with other ideas Lucas had for Harrison Ford characters with unconventional taste in women.
I was a child. I was in love. It was wrong and you knew it.
The original director, David Okumba, actually quit after filming the cantina scene, and I have no idea if I said his name right. But think about it. If you filmed that scene, you'd probably quit too. Heck, I watched that scene and I quit my job. I still don't have a job. I seriously watched that scene last year and quit my job. These things both happened last year at Christmas time. He was replaced by Steve Binder, director of perhaps the best TV special of all time, the Elvis Comeback Special. Despite the change, production seemed to go smoothly over about a month in 1978, but I think it went smoothly because nobody really cared. Everyone just wanted to get it done. The film stars all showed up, more out of obligation to George than anything else. And all are quite good despite the circumstances. Sure, Harrison Ford is kind of asleep through the whole thing, but he's so good that he's good while he's sleeping when he's acting. It's kind of like going to a friend's wedding. You might not want to go, but they came to yours, so you kind of feel obligated. Apparently, Carrie Fisher did it if they guaranteed her a song. So what's the show like? It's terrible, actually. It's really quite terrible. On November 17th, 1978, they preempted Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk 2. Hang on a second. November 17th? That makes this a Thanksgiving special. This isn't a Christmas special after all, so forgive me, ignore the tree. I guess the fire is appropriate for Thanksgiving, but this is a Thanksgiving special. The opening is actually pretty promising as you get Millennium Falcon combat action and the setup of our basic plot. Chased by the Empire, Han and Chewie are headed to Kashyyyk for Life Day. Sure, it's super cheap, reused footage from the movies, but it's Star Wars. Legitimately, this is Star Wars. Then, we get 10 uninterrupted minutes, maybe more than 10, probably like 12, of Wookiees talking. I think they were trying to capture that feeling of being caught in a conversation where you don't speak a word of the language. They captured the feeling of disorientation and confusion brilliantly. The Wookiees were actually created by Stan Winston. The special effects were ambitious. More expensive mechanisms for the Wookiee faces, but they don't so much emote as they grimace and wince. We then meet Chewie's family. Mala, his wife, Itchy, his dad, and Lumpy, his son. Lumpy is bored and tries to find things to do, while the adults yell at him and ignore him while he walks on a dangerous railing. If he had fallen, this special may have been interesting. This part of the special also makes me pine for the Timothy Zahn version of Wookiees and Kashyyyk. where Chewie has Princess Leia hang on his back as he uses his claws to climb the trees. Much of what this special does is remind you of better versions of Star Wars you'd rather be reading or watching. You get a whole lot of bad comedy. Harvey Korman is abysmal, although apparently behind the scenes he had everyone in stitches. On camera, however, nothing that is supposed to be a joke is remotely funny. References like Bantha Rump, which seem to be fan service, just feels insulting. They're the thinnest of plots here, with the Empire looking for rebels and hassling Art Carney and the Wookiees. Itchy watching, I'll just call it adult content and skip it. It's weird and it's terrible. The real miss here is tone. It seems like no one's actually watched Star Wars that worked on this thing. There were 5 credited writers, and one of them, Bruce Valanche, blamed cocaine. I think it was apathy, but probably also cocaine. It felt as if they took everything we knew about Star Wars at the time, the little that we did know about Star Wars, threw it in a blender, blended that up, dumped that in the trash can, and then smashed the audience over the head with the blender. Most of the segments are painful to watch. From the cooking segment that I swear to you made me dizzy, to the most boring Jefferson Starship song ever. Nothing has any feeling to it, and it just all goes on forever. Did I mention this special was 2 hours long? 2 hours long, and it feels way longer. November 17th, 1978 was a really long night. And finally though, 1 hour in, we get the one true high point in this, and that is the Boba Fett cartoon. And it's the only part that Lucasfilm has officially released after the fact. Sure, Luke and Han look a little bit more than creepy, but that's also what makes it unique visually. It's Ralph Bakshi stylistically very much a product of its time. Legend has it that Lucas actually applauded upon viewing the cartoon. It also laid the groundwork for what would become droids and Ewoks. The cartoon versions, that is. Which was produced by the same studio. Back to the special proper, it's really just the Wookiees and other people watching TV and playing video games over the holidays. That is my kind of Christmas. We do get the first credited appearance of James Earl Jones, who did some new voice work over old footage. Darth is clearly on the Death Star, which was totally blown up, and the poorly dubbed guy he's talking to, his corpse is floating somewhere in space. One of the shows the family watches is actually a cantina scene, and it's actually kind of cool. And apparently in the development stages, this was supposed to be more integral to the plot when there was really more of a plot, and Chewbacca himself was going to go there. And the setup actually really works. The execution, however, not so much. The premise is the Empire apparently shows the terrible life on Tatooine so that you feel better about your life as you watch the show. It's the only joke in the show that seems even remotely funny, and it's just barely funny. Apparently, B. Arthur runs the place, and has been for years. Hey, where's that droidist guy?
We don't serve their kind here.
This part almost works. Almost. The Empire is shutting the place down, and the Golden Girl gives the gang one more round and one more song. B. Arthur should under no circumstance ever, never, ever sing. Her acting isn't bad here. She conveys a sense of Tatooine toughness, and the sadness at the empty bar she finds at the end is decent. But she also sings to a giant rat and a Greedo she calls, I think, Lumpo? And that dude who had his arm cut off by Obi-Wan, I guess the arm grew back, but the sleeves didn't? Did they cut the other sleeve off to match the one that got cut off with his arm? When the arm grew back? So it'd be balanced? I don't know. As to the plot, eventually Han and Chewie do show up at the Wookiee treehouse, and really, the Wookiees just kind of stare at each other for a while. Oh, and they kill a stormtrooper. And Art Carney covers up the crime just in time for the Life Day closing ceremonies. Let's talk a minute about what actually happens on Life Day. Because I watched it and I'm not quite sure what's really going on, but this is what you see happening. Wookiees don their red robes, walk across an invisible space bridge into what appears to be an exploding sun, where Princess Leia sings along with Han and Luke, who, like the viewing audience, struggle to stay awake. The highlight here is actually by far the funniest moment in the special, and I don't think they intended this to be funny in any way whatsoever. Chewbacca recalls the events of the film, but in his mind, he's the hero. He conveniently ignores the fact that he didn't get a medal at the end, clearly a repressed memory. The Wookiees you see at the end here of Life Day were actually off-the-shelf Chewbacca masks because they were out of money. How much did they spend on this thing anyway?
$1 million.
$1 million? You know the budget of Star Wars was like 11 million. That's insane! It clearly didn't go into the Chewbacca mask budget. I guess it's the mechanisms for his family, for all that conversation and dialogue they needed to convey. Thus concludes the worst Christmas or Thanksgiving, whatever holiday you want to associate with. It wants nothing to do with the Star Wars Holiday Special. I really don't recommend it. George Lucas has said that if he could smash every copy with a hammer, he would, and now that it exists digitally, create that digital hammer, George. You love using computer-generated stuff anyway. I personally want to invent a time machine so I could tell myself not to waste time reading about it and trying to find it in the mid-1990s. with all that said, from my family of Wookiees to yours, have a very Merry Christmas, and may your life day be full of joy, love, and covering up the murder of a stormtrooper. Thanks for watching, everybody. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And seriously, Merry Christmas. And don't watch it. It's not good. If you do, like, make a game out of it or something and have people there. You need people with you to help you cope with it. I've watched it on my own multiple times, taking notes. I don't recommend that. It's a very lonely, sad experience. Merry Christmas!